Welcome one and all to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show here on WKYC. We are so happy to have you with us today. A lot to talk about, and we'll get right to it. I'm Adam the Bull, and on today's show, we'll talk about, can the Browns offense lead the way to a victory over the Broncos? G. Bush.
I'm G. Bush, leader of the Kool-Aid Mafia, and I'm going to tell you why an undrafted free agent in the secondary might play a big role this week in Denver. Jason?
And I'm Jason Lloyd. If it's a holiday weekend and you can't watch the game Sunday, we got you covered. We have pre-written headlines. We're going to tell you what happens before the game even is played. Mikey.
And it's not just Browns-Broncos this weekend. It's also Ohio State versus Michigan. And Tyvis Powell, who's never lost to Michigan in his career, is looking to keep that unbroken and undefeated streak perfect this weekend with his pick for the big game.
There are only freshmen at Ohio State that could say that now, unfortunately. We'll see if they can end that losing streak. Guys, let's get right to it. A defensive back. The Browns have had a ton of injuries this year, but they've mostly been on the offense. But now, for the first time, injuries are rearing their ugly head on the defense. Last week, Anthony Walker was out, but really right now we're focused on the secondary. Juan Thornhill missed yesterday's game. Grant, he is practicing, which is good because I thought he'd be out this week. He is banged up, though. He's questionable. He got a limited practice in today. So did Grant Delpit, who got hurt last week. Denzel Ward has not practiced all week and is expected to miss the game. Guys, and G, I'll start with you. How big a deal is this that the Browns are banged up in the secondary?
Pretty big deal. I think, you look at Russell Wilson. He's been efficient, effective, 19 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions this year. They got a big body in Cortland Sutton, who's a guy who's been playing well. Jerry Jeudy they have out there as well. So, those are, we've been able to match up our corners with just whoever's out there and shut guys down with Newsome and Ward and Emerson. You're not going to have Denzel Ward today, and you might not even have Thornhill up to expectations. You may see guys that Ronnie Hickman out of Ohio State had a couple of interceptions during the preseason, filling in with Rodney McLeod being out for the season. So they're going to have to mix some stuff up back there in the back end, and this is where having multiple corners comes into play. Greg Newsome has mixed in those positions before, got an interception against Seattle, and Emerson's been out there all year. We'll see how they go to bring that pressure, but it's a big blow.
Thornhill's sort of looking like the key to me because his backup is out now too, and Rodney McLeod. So if Thornhill can't go, you're down to an undrafted rookie at that spot. And we've already pointed out on the YouTube show how many times, when Thornhill's not out there, it leads to big plays defensively. They haven't given up a ton, but the few that they have, a couple of them is when Thornhill has been out there to make the tackles. So that's really the one that I'm watching. You're not going to have Denzel. Martin's going to be fine on one side. I feel comfortable with Greg Newsome on the other. But it's that safety play that really is a concern right now. Denver can throw the ball. Russ, G talked about it. Russ is having a great year. Jerry Jeudy's okay as a receiver. Cortland Sutton is, I think, pretty good. So the Browns are going to have the work cut out for them. These injuries are significant right now.
Guys, I agree with you. I think this is a pretty big deal. I mean, it depends on who's ultimately playing. But if Thornhill and Delpit both can't go, now you're talking about 3 of your 5 starting DBs not playing. As you mentioned, their number 3 safety is already out for the year. If you end up if both of them are out, we don't know. They're both limited. Maybe they're both going to play. You could have 2 undrafted rookies who have barely played. A guy who was just on the practice squad as your second safety. I mean, that is a major concern in this game. The Browns have been winning by playing elite-level defense. They have not, and we'll get into it in a second, whether maybe that'll change. But to this point, they have not been able to win many games with their offense. The defense has carried the load, and if you're missing 3 of your 5 DBs, that could change how this game turns out. Hopefully, with the limited practices, Thornhill and Delpit will both play.
The scary part with Thornhill is it's a calf, and those things can trigger at any moment. You think 100%. You're okay, and it just takes one play, turn it on it wrong, and you're back out.
And, Bull, you look at it, the Browns have really excelled at playing man-to-man coverage. How much are they going to be able to carry that game plan over if you got guys in the back end that are fresh, young guys who haven't played? That's a really big part of what Jim Schwartz wants to run. So we'll see how much he runs man-man coverage versus zone in this game.
We've had some breaking news in the past couple of weeks on this show here on WKYC. So if we get anything in the next 20 some odd minutes while we're here, there's anything about the game status, my guess is Denzel Ward could be ruled out today since he hasn't practiced at all. But I'm assuming he's not going to play at this point. Thornhill and Delpit, and that's a big loss. But you could survive it because you have two other good corners, and certainly for 1 week. But Thornhill and Delpit, this is huge. All right, Mike, let's switch it up. Let's get to now. I just talked about how they've had to win with the defense. Let's say the secondary is ravaged. Let's say Thornhill doesn't play. Can the Browns win this game with their offense? If they have to score 20 points, if they have to score 24 or 27, do you have confidence that they can do it with DTR leading the way?
Well, we're going to see. I'd be surprised to see how it works, Bull. You look at a situation where you got Kevin Stefanski. We all saw that he had the training wheels on DTR last week. This week, I think if he feels comfortable, look at the numbers for the Denver Broncos. They're middle of the road when it comes to stopping the run, middle of the road when it comes to the pass defense. If they find a couple of matchups that they like, guess what? Then we may be able to go off script a little bit and get more downfield action early in the game, Jason.
Do I have confidence they can go the length of the field? No, I don't, because we haven't seen it yet. So how do you have confidence in something you haven't seen? They got one touchdown last week against the Steelers. That came off a short field after they held Pittsburgh and made them punt.
Right.
So if they can create turnovers and get short fields again, yeah, okay. But if you expect this offense to start at the 25 or 30 and go 70, 75 yards methodically down the field without a big defensive bust, no, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. And that's why it comes back to you got to hold on to the ball. You can't turn the ball over. Can't give Denver a short field. And you really have to rely. The Browns the last few weeks have done a nice job at creating turnovers. They didn't get any last week. But prior to that, they're getting a couple a game that's really going to be key. Whether it's fumbles, strip sacks, interceptions, you have to set this offense up with short fields because I don't have a lot of confidence in them being able to go the length of the field.
I think expecting turnovers in this game is a lot to expect because, you know, in the last bunch of weeks outside of Lamar, the Browns have faced mostly bad quarterbacks. Russell Wilson doesn't turn the ball over much. Last year, it was an anomaly, I think. You know, last year, I think we all felt like he was falling apart, and he had a terrible season. Now, I don't think he's as good as he was in his best at Denver. Obviously, he was in Seattle. But he's closer to that guy than he was the guy we saw last year. And something that he's always been good at is not turning the ball over. And Russell Wilson only has 4 interceptions on the year. I mean, that's a great number. He's hard to pick off. And without Denzel Ward, who's your best interceptor,
right,
it's hard to rely on a turnover. I mean, you know, you never know because a fumble things happen. But I think going into this game, you know, you got to hope it's a turnover-free game for the Browns because I don't have a ton of faith in the Browns forcing a turnover unless Myles Garrett can get a strip sack. I think that's your best hope.
Oh, yeah, that's where the defensive line that you're preaching in, hey, get the ball out, strip sacks, that's where the turnovers will come this week.
But I am not confident the Browns can win a higher-scoring game. I think, and we'll get to the scores later, but I think for the Browns to win most of their games, it's got to be a game in the teens or single digits.
Now, I do think DTR is probably going to he should improve, right? The more you do something, the better you get at it. We could throw out the first start against Baltimore. That was atrocious. So now you have something to build off last week. He has another full week of practice reps.
Right.
I do expect them to try and open up the game plan a little bit more, take a couple more deep shots down the field. You know, if I'm Denver's DC, I'm watching the second half of last week's game, how the Steelers sat on all the Broncos routes. They were playing 8 in the box, and they took away everything short because the Browns weren't going long. Eventually, the Browns have to take a deep shot, play action, deep shot on third down, do something to try and loosen up this defense. And if you can get lucky and break one, you know, you got a chance.
Jason, who's your X factor in this game?
It's Dorian. It's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and it's the turnovers. It all comes back to turnovers. I don't care about completion percentage. I don't care about yards. I care about the turnover column because if you're giving Denver a short field to work on, the Browns are going to be in trouble. He's got to take care of the football. Can't turn the ball over. Can't force it into bad spots. He did a really nice job last week at getting the ball out on time and on target. He has to do that again.
G, who you got?
I'm going to go over the defensive side of the football and go with Sione Takitaki. He's going to be filling in for Anthony Walker. He's going to be in the Mike position. He played well at Mike last year in spurt duty, but he has to get running backs on the ground. Guys, the Browns have given up, back-to-back weeks. You look at the Ravens game, long runs against the Ravens. You look at the Warren run last week, 70-something yards. For them to get to the third downs, they're going to need guys to get guys on the grounds, especially with Grant Delpit being banged up. I'm looking for Taki to be a guy that could get those guys on the ground. If he plays well, get it to third down, then you could get the monsters Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith into action.
My X factor for this game, guys, is a guy I love, Dustin Hopkins.
D-Hop. Yeah.
The great, of course, D-Hop. What a great nickname he's got. Dustin Hopkins has been amazing this year. He's made the kick almost every time they've needed him. He's perfect beyond 50 yards. Denver, we've seen a lot of long field goals in Denver. Jason, you talked about it. The Browns are going to have a hard time maintaining drives. So what might we see? We might see a few drives stall out at the Bronco 40, maybe even the Bronco 37, maybe even the 45, and we're trying a 60-plus yard field goal. I think usually when you think of aggressiveness from a head coach, it's on offense. I think Kevin Stefanski's going to be aggressive in terms of kicking field goals. I think we could see Dustin Hopkins try a field goal of 60-plus in Denver, as long as it's not crazy weather, which we'll check on in a little bit. And